Welcome to the Ultimate Sync Sessions, hosted by Amelia McCloskey and powered by Ultimate Sync Access, the ultimate platform for exploring opportunities in film, TV, gaming, and advertising. Join us as we dive into the sync world with the key players who shape the industry. Hi everyone, so welcome to the Ultimate Sync Sessions. I am especially super excited by the guests that we have on today. We are joined by Laurie Cromwell-Charron from EA Games. Hey Laurie, how are you doing?
Hello. Hi everyone.
I've been the whole team has been super excited to have you involved and have you on the podcast because gaming is huge, massive, and unless you've been living under a rock, everyone knows who EA Games is, and so I've been really, really excited to delve in and just be able to find out your role at EA Games and everything it entails, and just to learn more about the gaming space myself, if anything, too. Not just the listeners, because I've more been on the film and TV side of things, so it really piques my interest for sure. So Laurie, do you want to give a little bit about your role at EA Games, just a bit of an overview, because you're head of music licensing there, aren't you?
So, Amelia, thank you. Thank you. I'm super happy to be having this conversation with you. I am very passionate about games. I'm very passionate about music, and this is a space that I just love. So I'm always happy to talk about it, and I'm happy to have this conversation with you today. Yeah. So I am manager of music licensing at EA. So we have a whole team, but I am responsible for music licensing for some of our games that you might know about. So college football, Madden, NFL, Need for Speed, UFC, also F1 are some of the titles that I work on, along with all the marketing campaigns that are associated with those titles.
It's very, very cool. And we are definitely going to delve into some of those games that you've worked on as well. But prior to EA, you also secured music licenses at Ubisoft as well. With The Crew, Watch Dogs, Just Dance Now, and you also negotiated music rights for marketing initiatives to promote Assassin's Creed Origins, Steep, and Far Cry 5. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. That's right. Ubisoft is actually where I got my start in music licensing. And yeah, so I think it's been about maybe a little bit over 10 years now that I've been licensing music and doing clearances and rights negotiations. But yeah, that's definitely where I got my start, up in Montreal, actually.
Very cool. So, everyone, I imagine, especially those that are avid gamers, just also those that are in the sync space or make or music or rep music, are all fascinated about the gaming world. So would you be able to give us a little bit of an insight and share a bit about your role at EA and what your day-to-day responsibilities look like?
Sure. So day to day, one day can be very different from the next. But in terms of what a day to day looks like, I think a key word would probably be collaboration. There is a lot of collaboration internally with our production teams, understanding what it is that they need, what it is that they'd like to do with the music. They are always pushing the boundaries on what is interactive entertainment within our games, and the music that we use has to follow the vision that they have. So there's a lot of collaboration with them. There's also our music creative team. I am on the music licensing side, so we do a lot of the rights negotiations, the nitty-gritty of getting into the right, who owns what, how is the music going to be used. But we have a creative team who work very closely with the production teams to help them understand the soundtrack and how they want it to sound from one year to the next. What does that soundtrack sound like if it's Madden versus F1 versus EA Sports FC? So there's a lot of conversation there that we're having with the creative team. Then, of course, there's all of the external conversations that we're having with our licensing partner. So we have folks who are pitching up music, yes, but once we receive that music, how are we accessing it? How are we determining who has those rights? And if you have had a chance to listen to or play any of our games or listen to the soundtracks of our games, you understand that we use a lot of music. So that's a lot of conversations, and we rely a lot on our external partners to help us navigate all of the rights that we have to clear for all this music that we're looking to secure for our games.
And there's a lot that goes into that. And we're going to delve into the nitty-gritty of the clearance side of things, which is a huge part of what you handle, and everything that goes into that too. But before we get into that, how did you get into the music clearance side of things? And what also drew you to the gaming industry as a whole?
Sure. So if you indulge me for a bit, I'll give you a little bit about my background. Uh, so the short answer is I applied. I applied to Ubisoft and I was hired. But before then, the journey leading up to that fortuitous interview that allowed me to get into this space was that I have a background in music. I studied vocal performance, opera, classical music at a conservatory here in the United States. So that's, everything that you would expect, vocal techniques, music theory, performance, a little bit of composition, everything that goes into that. And after that long, arduous, but rewarding journey, I understood that I did not want to have to perform in order to make a living for myself. So at that point, I began exploring other options that I could do with this music degree. I ended up moving to France and living in France for many years because that was an opportunity that yes, I am also francophone. I spent several years there and I ended up going back to school in Grenoble over there and getting an international business degree. And following that degree, I did a quick stint at the Lyon Opera in Lyon, France. That was like a dream job. I would be able to raise money for the wonderful initiatives that opera house was doing, while also being able to see all the operas the entire season as part of my job. And that was a dream job for me at the time, but I didn't know that there was another dream job that was waiting for me. And so when I moved to Montreal, I was looking for work. I needed a job, and Ubisoft was hiring. And they were looking for someone who spoke French because many of the production teams were in France, who spoke English because we had to deal with the licensors who were in the United States and worldwide, who also had a background in music, who could speak the language of the musicians, the artists, the labels that we were talking to. And so I was hired and I learned everything on the job. I know that today there are, what would you say, like different universities have sync programs or music business programs that you can sort of learn this. But I'm one of those folks where I learned it on the job, had to apply what I knew from my background to, learning at the job. And it was something that I loved. And I also love video games. So I was drawn to that job. I am unfortunately not an avid player. There's a skill set that's missing for me to truly play. Like once the controllers got more than two buttons and like the up and down arrows, like they lost me. But I still do love the video game space, and so this is a way for me to be a part of it, contribute to it, contribute to its success at EA. And also, one of my favorite things is just to be able to be a part of allowing our creative communities, like our musicians, to continue to do what they do best, which is create, and then negotiate and create that space for them to have and see their works in our games. Yeah, as you can tell, I'm very passionate about this.
And that's great. It really conveys, and I think you can't really probably excel in a job like that without being so passionate about music and artists, and you know, really helping them excel through the gaming space. But I want to rewind a little bit because there was so much in there, just with your background. And we actually had a chat before this podcast about the opera side of things, because where I also was a vocal coach for 15 years. So when I heard that you study vocals, not only just vocals, but opera, which is the epitome of vocals, isn't it? Everyone aspires to and admires the operatic voice. So for me to be able to hear that, and also hear about the kind of training that you underwent to study opera, is truly fascinating, because you really had to go through a lot through the breathing techniques and things like that, didn't you? And then
Yes.
completely change direction for the gaming space. But it seems all the way through, you've been really blessed with your roles and your experience as well, to give you such an all-rounded experience in different areas, which is great.
I think that, I mean, this isn't a career coaching podcast, but I think that I've always sought to do things just a little bit differently, or find opportunities. I'm not going to be the best at everything, but I can try to be the best that I can be at something that's maybe a little bit more niche that everyone isn't competing for,
Yeah.
and or that I'm also passionate about. And I've through those decisions, through that lens, the decisions to move to France when maybe not everyone is doing that, to try to work for an opera house, and that isn't what everyone else in my class is going to work for a giant bank. But doing fundraising and development at an opera house is something a little bit different. So just trying to find those pathways that are maybe a little bit off the beaten path, but still interesting very much, and which leads me to, where I am today.
100%. And EA is one of the biggest names in gaming. How has EA Games' approach to music evolved over the years, would you say?
Sure. So EA has decades long relationship with music, and just in the gaming space, you know, music started out as, what was it, like 8-bit, and from there it needed to evolve, and EA was always a pioneer in pushing the boundaries on what the music that was in our game sounded like. And I believe that EA was one of the first companies to really invest in having a composer, and going into a real studio with great acoustics, and recording a score similar, like what you would find in a film, television, or major film studio, and really recording that music so that it enhances the gameplay, just as much as you would find in any other sort of medium, but moving that to the gaming space. So just in that, EA was a pioneer. And since then, they've always improved on, the composers that we work with, but also on the music licensing side, the idea of having our games as a venue or platform for music discovery. So that has been a defining idea when you think about the music that goes into our games. And so EA has always thought to introduce the players to new talent, to new artists, to musical ideas. And so now our focus is not just to be a platform of discovery, but to influence real life with the music that you find in our game. Because our games are interactive. You have people coming in playing, spending 60 hours with a game and with that music. And so it helps them discover, but it also informs what they think about of, say, the sport that they're playing. Like if they are a football, soccer fan, well, when they go to the stadium, maybe they want to hear the song that they've been listening to while they're playing EA Sports SC. So how do we bring those worlds together? How do we bring that experience to be more than just what is within the game, but to be a lifestyle that is not just confined to the space of the game. So that's where we're going with that.
And I love that, EA Games has been such pioneers in the music space and really understands and takes music so seriously with that, because it also just provides a lot of opportunities and allows really talented composers, musicians, artists to be able to continue doing what they do. It's a partnership, isn't it? Because it enhances the games, and also it's great for those that create the music. And we're seeing more and more partnerships happening between the immersive experience with artists now and a lot of gaming. And their fans too, and reaching whole new audiences through that for the artists as well, that they wouldn't normally be tapping into. And to be able to also have Spotify as a platform to be able to release all the soundtracks on, and again, brings in even more new audiences of discovering new music. So I'm really interested in hearing your experiences on the daily for those that don't really truly understand the process of what goes into sync licensing, because there's some who could maybe be new to the sync space, or just don't understand the nitty gritty of it. Some think that maybe you get to listen to music all day, but actually your side is very admin heavy. I imagine you probably have to be very organized in what you do, because you're dealing with legal rights here. So can you delve into what goes into exactly clearing a song for a game? Walk us through the process and explain what clearing a song, what actually really goes into that.
Sure. And just to step back a second, I wanted to note what you said about partnership. And in our daily day-to-day, we refer to our licensing partners. Our licensing partners. That's the term that we use to refer to the folks that I'm talking to and emailing with every single day, and also the artist who I'm in direct with. So you're absolutely right on that. We definitely view everyone that we deal with in this capacity as a partner. And we are also creating EA Electronic Arts. Like, we are creators, we are creating. And so to be a part of that ecosystem is very important. So yeah, the partnership. Now, in terms of day-to-day, so we already touched on the fact that there is an enormous amount of music that goes into our games. So that is something that in any discussion we have to talk about and think about, because we're looking at, 200 songs for EA Sports FC. We're looking at 30 to 50 songs for F1, and then another 100 songs for Madden NFL. And these are games that are coming out yet. We'll see for this year, but normally these are annual titles. So that's a lot of volume that we have to tackle. So on any given day, there are just a lot of moving parts. So I mentioned that we have our creative team. So our creative team is working with our production teams. They are having daily conversations, dialogue, to understand what is it the music that they're looking for. Once they sort of decide on what they are looking for and which direction that they want to take, then they start to advise with us, where do we go from here? How do we secure the rights to this music? So at that point, our job is to look into who owns the rights to the songs that they're looking for. A lot of the songs tend to be with our music licensing partners that we usually work with. But as you know, artists' collaboration isn't defined or confined to a major label or a specific publishing house. So there's also a lot of independent artists that we're working with. There's a lot of solo artists that we're working with. And so the idea is to do that rights holders research and find out who has the songs and who do we go to get the approval rights. At that point, we connect with everyone. We explain to them what it is that we're trying to do with their music in the game so that they clearly understand what it is that we want to do. There's negotiation involved. And when we come to an agreement, as you know, there's not just one party, there's always two sides, your master side and your publishing side. So every song has to have at least two people that we're reaching out to. Occasionally, we will have one-stops where the master and the publishing fit with one entity, but that's sort of rare. So we're usually reaching out to a lot of different people. But as the songs clear, we continue to communicate with our production teams and our creative teams so that they can start lining up and integrating these songs into the game. And at that point, we just try to do our best to get a full list that's cleared. And we're not always clearing if there's, 30 songs in the title. We're not just clearing 30 songs. We're clearing more songs because sometimes we run into issues. Sometimes they don't clear. Sometimes there are issues that we haven't foreseen. A lot of our music, we pride ourselves on being at the forefront of music and at the forefront of like artists in what they're producing. And so we tend to license songs that maybe are just to market or maybe they have not yet been released. So that's also another conversation. So at any given day, yes, there's a lot of Excel tables, there's a lot of emails, there's a lot of things that we have to keep track of because, these rights are legal rights that we're dealing with. And we have to make sure that we have all of our approvals in place and everything in place so that we're doing the right thing on behalf of the artists that we're working with and also for the benefit of our players with this music in the game.
I mean, that's an insane amount of clearances you have to get over the line. Working on films that are nowhere near that level of volume of songs that I've had to clear, and trust, I've had some sleepless nights trying to get some things over the line when it's going to mix. Do you tend to potentially just line up, quite a few different options for a spot? Because obviously, sometimes it may not go through, and I imagine because you've probably with your partners, what probably who to go to, what is good to go, what's good to normally clear, and which partners are the trusted sources that are able to get that over the line every time. But there must be instances as well where, like you mentioned, there are cases where no matter what you do, it just doesn't clear for whatever reason. So do you line up like a good few options for each potential spots and things that you're looking at?
When we think about maybe in-game usage versus, say, like for a marketing asset, those conversations are going to be a little bit different. What we pride ourselves on is to really go after the songs that our teams want. We do our very best. Like, I work with a lot of hip hop. Sometimes productions, other places might shy away from hip hop because there's a lot of rights holders involved. You have one song with like 8 different people that you have to reach out to. And sometimes people don't answer. Sometimes people don't have someone who's working on their behalf for the business aspect of it. But we pride ourselves to really go that extra mile to get the song that we want for our team. Yes, occasionally things do come up and it makes clearance difficult. We aren't having like a backbench for every single song. Like, we want to go for the songs that we're looking for. And we also don't want to overburden our licensing partners with requests for songs that might not make it. We want to make sure that we understand their time as well, because they're not just dealing with us, they're dealing with everyone. So alternatives do come up. But that's not our main focus. Our main focus is to clear the songs that our teams want, and then, if need be, to find something to fill in if necessary. With a marketing asset, the conversation there was a little bit different because you're just dealing with one asset, and usually there's a lot of input on that. So that's another instance where we're going to try our best to get that asset for the team. And in the vast majority of cases, we're able to do that.
And on the trailer promotional side of things, do you typically, have your go-to licensing partners that generally specialize in the trailer space, for gaming, or do you have like quite a wide varied range depending on what the needs are for that particular promotional campaign trailer for that game?
Yes, it's more so the latter. It's really our marketing teams who are driving, not necessarily the creative, because our creative team works hand in hand with our marketing teams to come to a conclusion of what they want to hear for a particular spot. But we don't necessarily have a particular person that we'll reach out to for all of our marketing needs. Like we try to go with what the teams want. And we have such varied teams. Something that we clear for a spot for Madden is going to be very different for something that we clear for Battlefield or for Apex. So it's really, yeah, it's a wide open palette, and everything can be up for consideration.
And I imagine for a game where, like you mentioned, you have up to say 200 usages that you need to clear, do you get a good amount of lead time to be able to do that? Because that's a lot of clearances. Or could it be sometimes, especially when it comes down to the line, what does that look like for something that music heavy with the lead times?
Sure, sure. So our lead times are pretty long, but at the same time, we have some annual games. So the lead time isn't going to be any more than the year that we have between when the last one came out and when the new one is supposed to come out. So I've only really worked in the video game space, so I'm not sure what lead times look like for other industry, film, television. But for a video game, and especially for in-game, yes, since we do have such a high volume, we do have several months of lead time. But what happens there is that the musical landscape can change. So something that we really loved at the beginning, maybe that artist might put out another track on their album that they hadn't finished at the time. And now it's like, oh, wait, no, but this is the track that we want. So the long lead time is good. And it's good because even if there's the new track that comes up and if it fits better and works better for the game, then I'm going to go out and get that track. But yes, we have very long lead times.
That's definitely a blessing because I think if you speak to a lot of music supervisors, especially ones that are just brought in to work on a particular, say, film project, for instance, can be brought in at very last minute to have to quickly get things over the line. And that can be very stressful for a lot of supervisors. So I think it's every supervisor's dream to have long lead times to be able to get things over the line. Many that you speak to would say that for sure.
I will say though,
yeah,
just quickly, I will say though that also given the volume, even if I have a long lead time for one game, I'm working on multiple games at the same time. So it's not like we have like this, inordinate amount of breathing space to just clear music. We're definitely clearing a lot at the same time. But yes, compared to something like a marketing maybe request that comes in, a couple of weeks ahead of time, and we have to really go out for it, and there's fire drills and perhaps sleepless nights. There is a difference there that we might not have on the in-game side.
And how do you navigate the rights involved when licensing a song, especially, for an international releases or multiple platforms?
Sure. Sure. So again, I'll go back to this idea of partnership because we definitely rely on our music licensing partner, especially when it comes to like your international releases, like song releases. It's more the complications come up more on the licensing side, licensing in, because in terms of EA being a global company, yes, we have teams that are all over the world, but music licensing is centralized with me and my team. And so anything that involves music, if it's a new spot, if it's a new game, anything, if it's a collaboration that a team in, I don't know, Australia is interested in doing, then that request is coming to us. So in that respect, it gives us like this centralized, um, like wealth of information and knowledge within our team. So if there's an international song that we need, chances are we've dealt with someone in that country, or we have licensed a song that's similar, or we've even licensed from that very artist. So between our institutional knowledge and relying on our music licensing partners, it usually helps us to be able to get the songs that we need. Like SC has a lot of international music in it, and we definitely rely on our music licensing partners here who work in turn with their local offices to help us get music over the line.
Yeah, and that's definitely a plus, isn't it? Having all the international officers that work locally within those territories to be able to clear things, and already really established partnerships in place, that you know what can clear easily, what things cost, and um, that's the difference, I think, when having in-house teams for such an established global company definitely helps. And who doesn't want their music in EA games? So I'm sure, a lot of your partners will definitely make sure they go to the ends of the earth to make it happen, not to lose that opportunity as well, right?
Well, we definitely appreciate them.
Yeah. So what would you say, because you come across a lot of well, I imagine mainly your creative departments get pitched a lot of music on a daily basis, probably hundreds, I imagine, every day. But for yourself dealing with the clearance side, what advice and what kind of mistakes do you see on the daily that many artists or labels make that you would advise for them if they want their music to be used in a global company like EA Games? What kind of mistakes do you see that's quite common?
Sure. So some of the most common mistakes is just not having your information readily available for us to be able to find you, to be able to understand if you have the rights that you say that you have. Again, if we go back to just the volume of music that we go through in any given year, I'm trying my best to clear the songs that the teams need. But at the same time, if I run into complications that prevent me from being able to license the music because your metadata isn't up to date, or your contact information isn't up to date, or you have samples in your song that aren't cleared before you pitch up the music, those are all roadblocks that they won't necessarily stop us from licensing a song, because sometimes these things can be worked out, but a lot of times it's just a question of, well, if there's a song that's readily available and it doesn't have all these complications, we might, in the interest of time, have to go with this other song. What I like to say to anyone who's interested in having their music in this space, it's like, it's already, even as much music as we use, there's still so much music out there. And so if you're pitching, there are many reasons for your song not to make it into a game. There's competition, there's sound quality, there's the syncability, there's what it is there's so many reasons for a song not to end up in the game. But don't let the reason be something that is completely within your control that will prevent you from getting your song in the game. make sure you have everything together so that we don't have to run into the last minute and drop your song because there's a sample in it that was unforeseen and you didn't tell us
Mm.
about.
And that definitely applies, especially in like hip hop spaces where they use a lot of samples.
Yeah.
Um, and there can be a lot of confusion around that as well. And I get asked it a lot, my opinions over samples and things. And I just always say, look, if you're not sure, just don't use samples.
Mm-hmm.
It's just to make it easier. And there's other options. If you want to get into the sync space, just try and steer clear of that.
You're listening to the Ultimate Sync Sessions with your host, Amelia McCloskey, where the world of sync meets opportunity. Stick around for more insider insights and stories straight from the heart of the industry.
What about, because obviously you work with a lot of composers as well, and I know you have departments that deal with composers directly. Do you get involved with any of the composer side of things in terms of clearances or anything with licensing schools or things like that?
We have an in-house department, as you stated, that does have complete control over hiring and working with composers and working with the composed music that's in the game. So that's not really something that I touch. But if for some reason the team want existing music that's composed, that's out there for our game, yes, then at that point it's not really much different than licensing a commercial track. We still need to find out who owns it and negotiate those rights, explain how we plan to use it, and negotiate those rights with the composer or the owner.
Yeah, thank you. And how many tracks do you typically license? And I know this will really also, again, vary depending on the needs of one game to another, which is going to be vastly different from one to the next. But typically, an average ratio in terms of the clearance side, how many tracks versus major labels compared to indie artists does EA Games typically clear on any given game?
Sure. And that's a hard question because we don't necessarily look at it from that perspective. We don't have X number of major label tracks that we use and then indie label tracks that we try to fill out the balance. We really start with the creative side first. So it's really if there's an independent artist that we really love, it's going in the game. Whether it's an indie, whether they are signed to a label or a major publisher or not. So our creative team, and I think that's maybe a little bit of the benefit of having the two sides of the supervision job sort of split between like the creative and the licensing part of it, so that our creative teams can really look at how best they can enhance the gameplay without worrying about, on the other side, is there a quota or what are the rights to this, or are we going to be able to license it? They can really act from a creative standpoint. So in that respect, I couldn't really tell you of a ratio because we're not really looking at it from that perspective. We're taking out the artists and the music as it comes.
And I love that. I love that it's creative first. Regardless of how many followers they have or whether they're in indie or whether they are with a major, it's the right sound, the creative comes first above all else. Yeah, I really like that. So let's now look into promo trailers, marketing, music, because you're also heavily involved in the clearing of that side of things as well. So that typically goes into selecting and clearing music for the trailers. I know we touched on this a little bit earlier, but just to delve a little bit deeper into the marketing campaigns compared to in-game music.
The biggest difference is the timeline. Marketing campaigns tend to move at breakneck speeds, and so you have to be available and there to talk to the marketing teams, understand what it is that they're looking to do, a lot of times their rights the rights that they need are changing in real time. So the difference there is it's sort of like a sprint versus a marathon. So in terms of like the actual clearances, there's not too much difference there. Like once we understand the tracks that the creative team would like to license, it's understanding who owns those rights, reaching out, explaining what the rights are that we need, and coming to an agreement on if we can use the song or not. So in that respect, it's not too different, but it's mostly the timeline that's involved from my perspective. From a creative perspective, there's really, the continuity that the marketing teams want to keep with the music that's in our game. How does it best promote our game? Does it have the sound that we are striving to have for the in-game? Like what is the conversation there between those things? And then sometimes they pick something that's completely different. It's really just being available and keeping the dialogue going and moving very quickly for marketing.
And do you normally have a couple of different options just in case something isn't able to get over the line, especially because of the short lead times?
Yeah, it's hard to say because things tend to change in real time. So sometimes we might have a track that I'm going out for, the team loves it, but then they pivot. Maybe there's something else that they're interested in that works better. So now it's restarting the conversation with a whole new set of rights holders. Sometimes we do have to plan for a plan B if during the licensing process we find that maybe this isn't going to clear on time. But again, that's really like as a last resort, the idea to get the original track for our team, because that's what their vision is.
So it is more creative changes that can really change it up last minute. If ideas change on what might be a better fit, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that happens. That can happen. Creative changes come up. Let me see. Occasionally, we'll have instances where maybe there is a sample or there is some reason why on like the licensing side it's not going to work out, and that's usually the toughest. It's better if the creative vision changes. I'm fine with going out to a whole new set of like rights holders, but if there's some reason that technically or legally we can't change, then the whole creative exercise has to start over again, and that's tough because the teams are working hard to come up with something that's really going to promote our games. So yeah, creative changes for the most part. Occasionally licensing issues, but we try to work through those.
Yeah, for sure. So, can you share an example of a trailer or promo campaign where just the perfect song made such a major impact?
I'll talk a little bit about our college football game. So that's a huge game here. I think that many folks who might be listening to this may be outside of the U.S. and maybe college football or the concept of college football in the U.S. Might be perplexing, but here the college football culture is massive. And so our college football game, we released it last year, 2025. Before that, I think it had been something like 10 years since the game had been released. So you had people who still loved the game, who were still playing the old game. And so when rumors started that maybe EA was going to release college football again, like the internet, everyone was aflutter because this is something that was massive. But at the same time, okay, are they going to be able to do the game justice? Is it going to be as good as I remember, or as good as the game that I'm playing now? And so there's a lot of, not anxiety, but there was a lot of anticipation for this release. And so we ended up releasing a short teaser trailer just to sort of let everyone know, like, we hear you, we got you, we're going to do this right. And so that also created more buzz and made people really excited. But for the reveal trailer, we needed it to be good. And we needed to show our fans and the fans who've been waiting that we know what we're doing. We're going to release this game and it's going to be great. And so that trailer was really important. And so we ended up getting a Guns N' Roses song, Welcome to the Jungle. It's massive,
It's like
massive
one of
song.
my favorite tracks.
Oh my goodness.
One of my favorite bands. I've seen them live. They're amazing.
Well, that was the song that they wanted to go with it. That the production team, the marketing team, management, everybody wanted to go with. And so, like, okay, Lori, can you get us Welcome to the Jungle?
And it's
It's like,
such
okay.
an iconic track, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
such a cool track.
Yeah.
It must have felt, though, not just in your department, but all the departments working on this must have felt the pressure to deliver, even though you probably knew because EA Games, you've been doing it all so long and do it so well, but there must have been that suspense, excitement, but also that little bit of trepidation, like, okay, we've really got to get this right. There's
No.
so much suspense here. All the fans really excited. We've really got to get this. We've got to nail this.
Yeah, it's electrifying. And what's cool is that we have so many people within EA who love our games and play our game. Like your college football team, like you got a bunch of people who love college football, the game, and then they also love college football, the game that we put out. And so, yes, that excitement was also heightened within our own department on top of that pressure. And so Guns N' Roses, Welcome to the Jungle, yes, that's one title. Like we wanted to use it, but at the same time, the college football experience is infused with marching band music. So at the same time, we also wanted to bring that feel of the game day and the marching band sound to our promo trailer. So our team ended up creating a version that had marching band music infused into the title so that it totally matched the feel of the game. And it works so well. Like to date, let me see, I think I wrote it down, 3.5 million views on YouTube with engagement all across social media. And it truly, truly spoke to the hearts of college football fans and EA Sports college football fans all over. And so in terms of impact, it was last year one of the titles that had the largest impact for our community.
It's very, very cool. There must have been celebrations happening within the departments for getting that right, especially with that kind of level of engagement as well. And Guns N' Roses kids probably play that game as well. So do you have like leader scoreboards within the teams that play some of these games? Do you battle it out within teams, within some of EA games internally?
I imagine that happens. I would have to say that on our immediate music team, we're not doing so much of that. But I think company-wide, there has to be. There definitely has to be.
100%. Yeah, so EA, is known for its incredible game soundtracks. What's the secret behind curating such memorable music? Because the stats speak for themselves. A huge amount of engagement and always getting it so right. There must be so much that really goes on behind the scenes with the teams planning all of this. What is the secret behind that?
It is really whatever best for the gameplay, whatever enhances the gameplay the most. That's the driving force, and that's, if you want to call it a secret, that's the secret behind. Yes, there's listening to new music, and we have our creative team who they have amazing ears and they listen to lots of music, and they have had decades of being able to listen to new music and say, okay, there's something here and we need to push this out into our game and have our fans and our players discover it. Yes, there's that part of it. Yes, there's the fact that we tend to use music that is new or sometimes unreleased or sometimes hasn't had too much longevity on the Billboard charts or in any sort of charts. And so in that respect, we do get to flex some sort of A&R muscle, if you will. So yes, there's that. But it's really just working with our production teams and helping them to create the sound that they want for the game. And it tends to change. Like I mentioned hip hop for Madden NFL. Yes, it's hip hop, but what does the game sound like from one year to the next? We don't want to rinse and repeat. We always want to be pushing the boundaries. We always want to be exploring new sounds within hip hop. We always want to think about the keywords. Is it celebration, or is it striving, or is it, what is the idea that we want for each year? And so keeping those things in mind, it helps us get to the point where I guess we've got music that other folks want to listen to. It enhances the gameplay. And I mean, I've been at EA now for about 3.5 years, but there's a decades-long journey before I started of people loving our game. And so, that's the secret.
It's testament, isn't it? It's testament to the teams that work there, and the skill set coming together to create that. So how do the teams then all decide, when to license tracks versus the score side of things, hiring a composer?
Sure. And I think that really matters when it comes to the type of game that you're talking about. So like our sports games, we tend to have commercial music in those. So for an eSports FC, we're going to be looking for commercial music. College football, I'll mention that again. That game had some commercial music in it, but it was mostly rousers and fight songs, the sorts of things that are represented on game day at universities all across the country in the U.S. But there were also themes that we needed. So there was a composer we sought the services of a composer to create a theme. So in that respect, we're using both. But then we have other titles like our Jedi titles, Fallen Order and Survivor. Like, we're going to need a composer for that because we need to incorporate certain Star Wars themes that, everyone who's part of that community, I'm part of that community, who wants to, we need to hear certain things in those games. So those are going to be composer games. So it really depends on the type of game. New games, as they come in, it's a collaborative effort between the production teams and what their vision is of the game.
Yeah. And what role do the composers, obviously, where you touched on here with the Star Wars ones, is really, really important there for the composer to include those certain elements within the game to keep that authenticity. How do you go about, I know this is a different department that handles this, but what's really important to EA when finding the right composer to deliver those kind of important aspects of a game like Star Wars?
Yes, it is a different department, so I don't have too much visibility on who they're finding. I just know that they find the best people. They work with the best composers. So I'm not exactly sure. I can't speak too much in depth about how the composer shaped the experience or how they work with these themes. I am not exactly sure. I do know that the universal standard still remains. Like, whatever it is that they do, it has to be something that works the best for the gameplay, and it has to work the best with when the player is interacting with our game. So I know that's across the board. Beyond that, you'd have to talk to maybe a couple of other people on our team.
Yeah. And what's the most difficult out of all the good tracks that you've had to license, which is probably into the thousands and thousands that you've had to clear? Is there any particular standout sync clearance that you've had to deal with that's been the most challenging for you to have to solve, but you've managed to get it over the line? Any particular one that's really stood out?
Sure. So I will pivot just a bit on your question. Because yes, I have encountered difficult licensing one-off individual experiences, but in the totality of what I do in a given day, many of them tend to be maybe there's a challenge, maybe there's something that has to solve. But I will just talk about again college football 25. That game was unique in that the licensing partners that I needed to reach out to for the fight songs and the rousers and all these songs that we hear if you go to a college football game on a Saturday morning in Alabama, all of these songs that you hear are not something that your regular, everyday major label, major publishing house is going to have. Many of these songs are owned by the university. And so the universities, they don't necessarily clear rights or approve rights for 500 songs a year. And they're not, one of the major labels. This is something that they're not doing every day. So clearing the right to, I think we had something like 134 different schools in College Football 25. So reestablishing the relationships with all of those schools, speaking with these schools, the administrators, helping them to understand what it is that we wanted to do with their songs, helping them to understand sometimes I would be dealing with the legal team, but the legal team, maybe the lawyer that I'm talking to had a semester class on music business 20 years ago. He's not necessarily up to date on what it is to license music for a video game. So there was a lot of phone conversations. There were a lot of education. There was a lot of explaining and just general relationship maintenance with all of these different schools. And so that was a challenge for me because it's not something I had done before at previous companies. It's not something I'd really done here at EA since college football started a little bit after I had arrived. So that was something that was challenging, but also rewarding because the schools are so happy to have their fight songs and their rousers in our games. If students are playing it, they're happy to see their school represented. So challenging, but also super rewarding.
Yeah, I imagine that is a really rewarding result, especially for them, like you say as well. And clearing stuff is like playing detective a lot as well, isn't it? Is unearthing the rights and who belongs to what. And I imagine it, you get passed from one person to another, especially probably on that side of things. So they're probably trying to figure out, okay, who is it that we direct them to be able to clear this and handle this? Because I can't imagine they get people bringing them up wanting to license their music every day. So
nope.
They're probably trying to figure it out themselves as well. But generally, did you manage to, for all the tracks that you wanted to clear, did you manage to get all of them, or at least 90% of them, over the line?
Yes. The vast majority of everything that the team was looking to include in the game, yes, I was able to get that over the line. Yeah.
You must have a whole different skill set when it comes to persistence and determination with getting stuff signed off.
Well, when you're passionate about it, it's about sharing that passion, and people can get on board with that.
Yeah, it's true. Do you have legal teams within your department that help you as well with the clearance side? Like legal actual departments for some of the more, complex clearance issues?
Sure. So since what we do is, it does involve rights and it is legal adjacent, EA is a massive company. We do have a legal team. And so if there are issues, that we might need to run into or just advice or anything like that, we do have legal counterparts that we are able to talk to.
That's nice to be able to have that as well, because for a lot of us independent supervisors just don't always have that to be able to tap into, and you feel like you're then carrying that additional weight of the risks that can be involved with licensing things. And I think this is what a lot of people also forget about the clearance side are those legal risks that always come with it. It's dealing with legal rights and ownerships that, if it's not done right, can have potential challenges and consequences later on. Which is, there's a lot of people that aspire to want to get into music supervision, get into that side of things, but don't always factor in the legal entity side of the clearances. And like I said, it's fine when it all goes really, really well, but there are potential pitfalls and challenges that can arise from that. So what types of music would you say are commonly synced across your games? Because obviously with, the sports side of things, you're always going to have the ones related to lyrics that are focused on achievement, winning, and heavy, like upbeat driven, a lot of hip hop, that side of things. Are there certain other genres that you see in higher demand for certain games that you tend to follow?
Sure. So just thinking about the sound of our different games, they definitely vary. So I did mention, hip hop with Madden. At the same time, we have some of our other titles like F1. It's a Formula One racing game. So that's going to sound a little bit more, what are we listening to while we're driving? Is it more electronic music? It's going to be a little bit different from hip hop. We also have another game called WRC, which is also a driving game, but it's a massive rally style driving game. So you're thinking open desert, ethereal music that's going to accompany you on this massive journey. That's something that's a little bit different. I mentioned before EA Sports FC, our football soccer game. That one, we need to have, our different countries represented. We need to have the international community represented in the music that we have. So what else is there? There's also USC, Ultimate Fighting game. Like that has a lot of harder hitting music based on the nature of the content of the game. Yep. So we're, from a music licensing and creative standpoint, we're lucky in that there's such a palette of games that we are releasing. There's really, you can find so many places for music in the varied games that we have.
And the gaming industry is projected to surpass like over 3 billion in music licensing revenue by 2029. How is EA adapting to the growth of that?
Okay, so that's a massive question. I am one person in a music licensing role.
Yes.
So I can't really speak to what EA as a company is going to be doing in the next 4 years. But from our standpoint, from the music standpoint, we are just going to continue to do what we do best, and that is finding the music for games, pushing the envelope on how music is used within our games. Our creative teams are always coming up with new and interesting ways for fans to interact with our products. So how can I make sure that the rights that I'm negotiating support what our teams want to do today and into the future? And then just in terms of making sure that creatively our music continues to be the music that people discover within our platform, but also want to stay with beyond our games, and that we continue to influence culture from what we do within our games.
And have you seen any unexpected music success stories? Obviously, I know that you mentioned about the huge success with Welcome to the Jungle. Have you seen some really huge success stories with some, independent artists where a song blew up from the back of being featured in one of the games outside of a major artist?
In our EAFC community, I think you might remember that before it was called FIFA. And I think it was last year we transitioned from that designation to EA Sports FC. And so in celebration of that, there's all the music, decades of music in our soccer title. And so our teams wanted to celebrate the music that was in our titles for all of those years. So they released, I think it was called like the 100 Greatest Hits of EA Sport FIFA soundtrack. I think that was the name of it. And there were about 40 songs that went into the game. And then I think there was like a list of 100 songs that were the 100 top songs from all the previous years. And so what's interesting about that, and it was a massive hit. And what's interesting about that was going back all those decades. And also while our team was clearing music for this game, for the new added release for the music that was in the game, we saw which songs that when they were released weren't so well known, but now they're almost household names. So just to name a few, like Blur Song 2, Glass Animal, Heatwave, John Newman, Love Me Again, Jungle, Did the Earnin, Kaleo, Way Down We Go. Like just a few of the songs that when they were picked for a game, they weren't necessarily the massive hit that they are today, but all these years later, thanks to, in part, obviously they're great songs and great artists, but thanks in part to being a part of our game and within our universe, they've kind of blown up, and we're really proud of that.
That's really cool. And what a great feature to run as well, to feature all the tracks that's been used. And FIFA's a massive game. I know it's got a different title now, but huge. And that's great for the artists as well to be featured on something like that. And it must feel really great to be a part of that, to be involved in that, knowing you were involved and be able to give that kind of opportunity to clear those rights and just to be able to offer something like that makes such a massive difference to an independent that wouldn't normally have an opportunity like that. Is great
Absolutely.
for them.
It's the thing that when I'm looking at my spreadsheet of 1,000 songs, it makes me able to continue on, because I know that, on the other side, there's some guy in his 40s whose kid thinks he's amazing because he was in our game. It's all worth it.
Exactly, yeah. And it does. And that's what really keeps and drives the passion for it as well. I mean, it does for me to be able to give an opportunity of a film or something that I'm supervising to an independent, and seeing the impact that has, it definitely makes all the sleepless nights sometimes worth it, right?
Yeah.
That's why we do what we do.
What?
So what one thing could some of the artists, managers, all your music licensing partners, what could they do right now to improve their chances of getting licensed with the EA games?
Yep. So there's so many pathways. Like I can't necessarily speak to, I know some people work with sync agents. I know it's not easy from one day to the next just to get signed to a major label or even an independent label. I know that all those things are pathways for certain people, but they might not necessarily be open to everyone. I mean, I can just go back to what I can say from the licensing standpoint is, again, just having that information when you're pitching, make sure you have that metadata on the track that you're pitching, because it's going to fall into a pile with maybe 500 other songs. And if our creative team says, hey, this is something that's really cool, but we don't even know how to contact you because that link, died, 6 months prior and we can't find you, then the song doesn't get used. So I have to go back to my tried and true war cry of make sure you have everything together when you send it over and contained within your audio track. Because even if it's in an email, like we might not find that email once we've downloaded that track. Make sure it's attached to the audio. I know a lot of people are doing disco. Make sure that everything is available so that you get your fighting chance if your song gets heard.
And it is already hard to stand out above the noise as it is, but there's so many that don't do that. But by doing, all the things that is required, it does put you ahead of the noise because it's such a competitive space. So just having the basics like that in place that, on paper, it just seems really, really basic, but still so many people don't understand or get it wrong, But wow, like I've learned a lot. I know for me, I've learned a lot today about the gaming space because I'm not a gamer. It definitely actually hearing you talk about your passion about the games and everything that you works on actually makes me want to go out and borrow my 9-year-old nephew's EA games. For sure, but no, I've learned a lot just about what your job role involves, and I'm sure that anybody listening to this will definitely take something away from what they've heard today, 100%. And EA Games are the pioneers in what they do, and they do it so well. And so I really love the main thing as well that I really take from this is it's creative first. They're really passionate about the creative being the first and foremost of their games. And it doesn't matter whether that's a major artist or an independent. If it's right for the game, it's going in. And as long as your metadata's in there, it's going in. So yeah. Thank you for today, and really, really pleased to have you on, and would love to have you back as a guest again at some point. So thank you.
I really enjoyed this conversation. I thank you very much for the invite, and spending some time talking about what I love. Absolutely.
And so if anyone is interested in wanting to get involved in EA Games, to find out, more info, where would they go for that? What would you recommend?
Sure. We have, obviously there's me. Like, I'm not sure after this what kind of access we're talking about for, folks that you deal with.
This will be for the general public.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, it starts with the creative side, so it sort of goes back to the question that you were asking before about how to get into the game. There's never really one path. So it's to figure out sort of what works best for you. But having your social media presence, having a presence, or working, collaborating, making the best music that you can make that then gets picked up by a label or picked up by a sync agent or picked up by even us directly. I tend to, say that those are the best ways to be able to figure that out. Because we really see so much music. Even if I gave you an email address, it doesn't mean that that's going to get you through because we receive so much music we couldn't possibly listen to it all. So it's about standing out as well in some capacity.
100%. I can't even imagine it. It would take teams, armies of departments to probably get through the amount of music that probably gets pitched to EA Games. And I would also add into there, to research EA Games Spotify playlists and previous music that's been used and really get to grips with the current styles and trends of music that you work on with your games. So thanks again, and I look forward to having you on the live pitch session where we're going to drill everyone on their metadata.
I look forward to it. Thank you.
Thanks, Laurie.
Thanks for tuning in to the Ultimate Sync Sessions with Amelia McCloskey. To learn how Ultimate Sync Access can connect you with new opportunities, visit ultimatesyncaccess.com. Subscribe for our monthly episodes and follow us on socials for more sync insights. See you next time.